I'm Charisse LeClaire. The September 9th primary is right around the corner, and we want you to be informed. CBS 3 Springfield, the Republican, MassLive.com, and New England Public Radio have joined together to bring you a detailed look at the candidates running for public office. Now here's the Republicans' Robert-rizzuto to introduce us to candidates running for office here in Western Massachusetts.
Hello and thank you for joining us for this edition of the 2014 Campaign Roundtable series. I'm politics reporter Robert-rizzuto, and before we meet our candidates today, I'd like to introduce you to our panel of journalists. We have the Republicans' chief editorial writer, Ron Chamelis, and from New England Public Radio, Jill Kaufman. Thank you both very much for joining us today. And to my left is the two Democratic candidates seeking to be the next Attorney General of Massachusetts. First to my left, we have Maura Healey, who oversaw 2 bureaus in the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, and she helped lead the Commonwealth's fight against the Defense of Marriage Act. Maura, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be here, thanks.
And to her left, we have Warren-Tolman, a former state rep and state senator who in the 1990s took on the tobacco industry through legislation. Warren, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
So yeah, we are here looking to get us to the primaries, which is next Tuesday, September 9th, and we're going to cover a number of topics. So we'll just jump right out the gate here and go into something that's very important here in Western Mass particularly, the issue of casino gaming. So in 2011, the legislature passed a law that expanded casino gaming in Massachusetts, allowing for the licensing of up to 3 resort-style casinos and a slots parlor. Now, you've both taken different positions on this topic. Maura, you are for the repeal effort, and Warren, you are in support of the law as it stands right now. But what we'd like to know is, if you're elected and the ballot question on the casino repeal comes down on the opposite side, where will that leave you? Will you fight for your position, or will you consider it to be settled? Maura, we can start with you on this topic.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here today. Look, casinos, I think, are the single most important consumer protection issue facing our next Attorney General. And, you know, for the last 7 years in the Attorney General's office, I've been on the front lines as head of the Civil Rights Division, as chief of the Public Protection Bureau, and I oversaw a lot of the work related to consumer practices. So, you know, the reason, Rob, that I stand opposed to casinos is I've looked at the evidence, I've seen what's happened in other communities. We see casinos closing in Atlantic City and jobs being shed there and across the country. We see Reno, Nevada, rebranding itself as an innovation district because casinos haven't been the economic boom that casino operators purport them to be. You know, having done too many predatory lending cases involving unfair debt collection, having seen what happens when casinos come to town in terms of foreclosures and personal bankruptcies and the harm to small businesses, that's why I stand against casinos. But believe you me, if repeal fails and casinos go forward here, that is a huge responsibility for the next Attorney General. And I come with the experience, having been a prosecutor, having been head of the Public Protection Bureau and worked on consumer issues. I come with the ability and the experience and the know-how to protect the public interest. Because as I say, there is no greater, larger consumer protection issue than casinos if and when they come to town. I also think it's incredibly important that as Attorney General, we have somebody who brings an independence to this. Now, you know, a difference here in this race is that I've never worked on behalf of the casino industry, and you know, unlike my opponent, I didn't work for an online gambling company, and I think that having the independence and having the wherewithal and the experience to advocate for consumers and fight for people, whether it's making sure that they're not harmed by predatory practices, making sure that workers in these casinos get paid the wages that they're due, making sure that things are constructed and built out fairly and that casino operators are held accountable and held to the promises they made to communities. You know, I know what's happening here in Springfield, Rob, and I know the promises that have been made to the people of Springfield. And as Attorney General, if gaming goes forward, I'm going to make sure that the people of Springfield are protected and that operators are held to their promises and held to their commitments. And that's the job of Attorney General. That's the job of being a people's advocate and running the people's law firm.
All right. Thank you very much, Maura. Warren, if you are elected and the casino law is repealed, you know, where does that leave you in the Attorney General's office in regards to this important issue?
Well, first of all, Rob, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about issues here in this great part of the state, which I spent 4 of the best years of my life at Amherst College in Western Mass. I love it. I love coming back here, and it's great to be back out here. Regarding the specific question, so if if the opposite of what I would prefer takes place, then we won't have casinos. And there's been some talk about if Charlie Baker would like to have one casino or something. I will do as I've consistently done when there's a vote by the people of Massachusetts. I've stood with that position. And so if casinos are repealed, we don't have casinos, I will abide by that decision. And in fact, I actually signed the petition to get this question on the ballot because I believe it's a good thing for people to have the right to have their say. Just as the people of Palmer voted no, the people of Springfield voted yes, and I respect that decision. Springfield was a city that was under state receivership from 2003 to 2009. The infusion of $850 million in economic development and all the thousands of jobs that go with that, I don't think is a bad thing for the city of Springfield. But at the end of the day, it's those voters that have the right to make that decision. I respect that. But if, in the flip side of that, since Maura answered the opposite, if there are casinos in Massachusetts, I'll take a backseat to no one to hold this industry accountable. Specifically, I will make sure that they abide by surrounding and host community agreements, that they don't engage in any predatory practices, that they to make sure that they they make their commitments to Gambling Anonymous programs. And frankly, we've seen all over the country from time to time, Rob, that there have been issues surrounding public corruption. And I won't stand for that. As Maura asserts, I have never worked for the casino industry, period, the end. She knows that, but here we go. But
my assertion was not on
you
that.
did say that, Maura, but in
I
any
said you
case,
ran an online gambling company, Warren, which is different, Fast Strike Games. That was what I was asserting. It was just a matter of independence and who has the ability
you
to
can check
be
the
the
record,
independent
Maura,
regulator.
you said that
here.
I worked for the casino industry, but I won't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt me. Thank you. And that's, my independence on this. Look, I'm a guy who took on big tobacco. My mom, my dad, my aunt who lived with me all died from smoking-related illnesses within 5 months. And my 5-year-old son, as we were heading out trick-or-treating, he was dressed as a cowboy, Rob, and he said, "Dad, all cowboys smoke, right?" And I wasn't going to let the tobacco industry prey on young people, so I stood up to them, and I will stand up to the casino industry, which is why I've been endorsed by such avid casino opponents as Scott Harshbarger. I mean, if he thought that I was anything less than willing to take on this industry with the full fervor that I muster against other big, powerful entities when I was in the legislature, then he wouldn't be supporting me.
So, I think on the casino issue, it's important for people to understand what's happening real time. There have been reports even over the weekend about what's happening in other locations around this country and what the industry is doing to people. And, to me, it's really, really important that the people of Springfield and the people of Massachusetts are protected. And I think that I bring that as my background. I mean, I stood up to the federal government on DOMA. I fought predatory lending and fought unlawful foreclosures, even in this community. I stood up and fought for women's access to health care. And so, I think that this is going to be a big fight, and it's really important that we have somebody who's experienced, who understands the law, who's got experience enforcing the law.
Right.
I'm the only prosecutor and the only people's advocate in this race in terms of my time spent in courtrooms on investigations and cases.
You're
which is
both
something we're
pledging
gonna
to
need.
uphold the people's will and protect them with the casinos in relation to the promises they've made. I think that's what it comes down to here. You both have diverging opinions on the topic, which is fine, as many Massachusetts voters do as well. But you both have pledged to let the voters' will stand and represent their best interests going forward, regardless of your personal opinions. So we thank you for your topics on that.
Just regarding the experience.
We have to move on to the next topic here. We've got a lot to cover, but thank you both. But the next one is another Western Massachusetts kind of centric issue that's very big here, very much on people's purview. The energy company Kinder Morgan has proposed they're working to get approval for expansion of a natural gas pipeline, and this will cut through northern Massachusetts. It's parts of Worcester, Franklin, and Berkshire counties. So this project, since it came to light, has drawn a lot of passions on both sides. First off, I'd like to know, are you aware of this issue? What is your take on it? And do you see this as something that the Attorney General's office may have some type of say on going down the road? And Warren, we can start with you on this topic.
Sure. Well, absolutely. The Attorney General's office will have some say on it. As you know, Rob, the Attorney General sits before the Department of Public Utilities as a ratepayer advocate on a whole range of different issues concerning public utilities, and the AG will have a seat at the table, and obviously has a very, very significant role in terms of the mix or the type of fuels that we use, and to encourage certain types of behavior. And the Attorney General can promote environmentalism in a big way, specifically encouraging, let me say it this way, the best fossil fuel, Rob, is the one we don't use, which is why I think we can do a better job encouraging conservation programs, as well as, frankly, repairing the 50,000 gas leaks that we have in existing pipes throughout the Commonwealth, which I believe ought to be a priority for the next Attorney General to encourage that type of behavior in those hearings. And reimbursement is a big issue, and it's complicated, sort of in the weeds, but yes. Regarding the specifics of your proposal, I've met with the environmental groups. I've been an avid environmentalist during my 8 years in the legislature, and that's why the two environmental groups that have endorsed in this race, Mass Clean Water Action and Mass League of Environmental Voters, have both chosen me as their candidate because they know I will stand up with the people of these communities against this pipeline. And clearly what we need to do is to do an analysis of whether we need a low demand analysis, frankly, to see if the economy can keep moving along, and do we really need these pipelines? Some of these communities, Rob, have 5 pipelines already going through them. When is it, 4, and this would be the 5th. When is enough enough? So I say, look, we've got to be very slow about proceeding down this line. I'd like to, look, I'm a guy that's had solar on the roof of my house for 11 years. I drive a hybrid. I'm very proud of my commitment to the environment as one of the sponsors of the Clean Rivers Bill and the Brownfields legislation, a whole range of other things that were very, very important in protecting our environment. And that's why I've been endorsed by the two environmental groups that have jumped in this race, and I'm proud to wear their support.
All right. Thank you very much, Warren. Maura, the topic of the Tennessee natural gas pipeline, where do you stand, and how do you see the Attorney General's office working into this going forward?
Well, first of all, I have probably spent more time in Western Mass than any candidate in any race this year, and I have been particularly attuned to this issue. This has been brewing for months now, and I think I was the first candidate to speak out against the pipeline and to stand with the people. And I believe as Attorney General, that is your job. You are there to fight for people, to be the people's advocate. It is the people's law firm. And until today, Warren had not spoken about the pipeline, to my knowledge at least. Let me tell you about the pipeline. There are a few things that really bother me about this. And I come at this having overseen an environmental protection division and having overseen the division in the Attorney General's office that does the work around energy needs. So I come with experience on this issue. What I find really troubling at the outset, Rob, is that there's been a total lack of transparency. We had people, representatives from Kinder Morgan, and according to the stories that I was told by property owners here, showing up on people's doorsteps, demanding that they be let on to survey their property for this pipeline. That's wrong. That's not how we do things in Massachusetts. So look, as Attorney General, first of all, I'm going to stand up to those kinds of efforts by a corporation to just barrel their way through people's lawns and properties. Second, we need more transparency in facts. Warren's right, we don't have the facts right now about energy needs, and we need to do a careful study and assessment about energy needs. Look, I put out the most comprehensive plan out there in terms of how we modernize the grid, diversify our fuel mix, increase energy efficiency, fix gas leaks, and make use of existing energy sources right now. So that's the second thing. We need transparency, we need facts. And as Attorney General, I'm going to be the first to advocate for the people and demand that corporations not act in ways like Kinder Morgan has acted in this instance. That's wrong. I'm glad I have the support of so many folks in Western Massachusetts, and including many electeds here because of this issue. And it's also the case, Rob, that I think finally this issue has moved itself east all the way to Beacon Hill. because I think that people are finally realizing the magnitude and the scope of this problem and how devastating it could be. We're talking about, a pipeline that goes not just through conservation lands, but also goes through farms and some of the real drivers of our economy in regions, in western and central Mass, and even northern Middlesex County. And so I think it's an incredibly important issue, and all the more important that we have somebody as our next Attorney General. You better believe it, the Attorney General is going to be acting on this issue, will be called to act upon this issue. It's all the more important that you have somebody who's had the experience in that office on those issues, who will be ready to deal with them day one.
Gotcha. Well, thank you both very much. It's, I'm sure the folks that this directly affects are paying very close attention to this issue, amongst other people.
Can I just say one
briefly,
thing?
Warren? Yes.
Yeah. So the two environmental groups, obviously, that have endorsed my candidacy, Mass Clean Water Action, the Mass League of Environmental Voters, obviously are very concerned about this. They don't take their endorsement lightly. So I've had many conversations with them and other groups about this, and have never been shy about where I've stood on this issue. So, while it's something that is very important to people in Western Mass, and I live in Eastern Mass, it's very important to me as well.
Both paying very much attention to this.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Well, we are going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few moments with more from the candidates.